Hello everybody, welcome back to a homesteading hustle. Today I'm going to make a garden frittata. So we are in the heat of gardening season and we have so much stuff, random things coming into the garden, like a couple of tomatoes here and there. We have some green onions, a couple broccoli here and there. So a really great use up for all those random pieces from the garden is a frittata or an egg bake of some sort. And this is just an easy one that I go to. It's a nice one to keep throughout the week for my husband and I for leftover, if we just want an easy meal to go to. So I just grabbed a few things from the garden today that I thought would work well. And so we are going to use green onion, broccoli, zucchini, a green bell pepper, a little bit of little cherry tomatoes, and we're also going to put in a little tiny bit of Swiss chard, as well as some celery and maybe just like a little tiny bit of kale. My husband doesn't really care for kale, so probably won't put too much of that in there. But just we have some crunch in there, and we have a lot of it's just green, which is why the tomatoes will be a nice addition, a little pop of color, and I'll probably top it with chives at the end. So we might even serve it alongside some sourdough toast. I mean, who doesn't like sourdough toast, especially with like avocado on it? Done deal. I think that's the jam today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to prep the vegetables, and I'll show you exactly how to make this frittata. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're just going to chop up our vegetables here. So I did pull these a little earlier, so the kale is a little bit wilty at the moment, but that's not a big deal. We're going to saute it. It's going to get wilty anyways. So I'm going to start with the really crunchy vegetables. So I'm going to actually start with our celery. And oftentimes when it comes to celery, people throw away the leafy tops. Don't throw them away. You can use those in so many things. I'm not going to put the leafy tops in the frittata today, but I am going to use them for something else. You can put them in a salad. They just have a celery taste. Don't throw them away. You can use them. So I'm just going to chop the celery up. And actually, you know what? Before I go ahead and go through the chopping here, I did preheat our oven to 400 degrees, and I have the skillet, which is a 12-inch cast iron skillet, preheating on the stove top, and I have that over about medium heat. I'm going to add our fats to it in just a minute here, so we're going to go ahead and just get chopping. So I'm just going to make these thin, small little chops here. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. And we're going to put these in the pan first because celery is really crunchy. We do want to cook everything in our frittata before we add our egg. So this is, like I said, a really easy recipe. My kids don't really care for a bunch of things in their eggs, but it's a great use up for my husband and I. And like I said, it's a good reheat for the week for a nice meal. So again, I'm going to set our tops away. I will probably use those at some point for something else throughout the week. So we got our celery here. I'm going to chop a little bit of zucchini. Probably don't need a ton. You don't really want to overfill your frittata. If you overfill it, it won't really hold together as well as you might like. And so, oops, let's keep that there. So you want to get a variety of flavors in there, but without compromising the texture too much. So we're just going to go ahead and chop up our zucchini. And I'm going to try to make all of the pieces of everything approximately the same size. I mean, if they're a little different, obviously that's totally fine. That's kind of all the zucchini we'll need. We'll set that aside. We'll get our bell pepper chopped up here. Again, we're not going to need the whole pepper. We're just probably going to use a little bit of the side. And we'll give it a slice and then we'll chop it. So frittatas are really nice because you put it all in one pan. It's a one-pan meal, which is, again, really great for easy prep. All right, so we have our celery, we have our zucchini, our bell pepper here. Now let's go ahead and we have some broccoli. I'm going to cut off the stems. Just like the celery tops, you can definitely use the broccoli stem. I'm not going to for this recipe in particular. I love the way the broccoli heads look. And I'm just going to give them a rough chop. I actually like these to be a little bit bigger in the frittata. I just think they look so beautiful. And when you saute them, they get really super green and they're just super pretty. So we're going to go ahead and put these into our oiled pan. So I'll show you what I put in the pan. Okay, so here we have a preheated again, a 12-inch cast iron skillet. It's nice and deep. It's a Lodge one. These are amazing. I can link one down below if you're interested in getting a cast iron pan. That is very nice. So I'm just going to add, oh gosh, how much butter do I want? You know what? I'm going to do, this is like about 1.5 tablespoons of butter. And I like the combination of butter and olive oil. So this is just an olive oil from Costco, organic extra virgin olive oil. I like the combination of both. So I'm not actually measuring this, but we're going to go a little bit more. That's probably about another 1.5 tablespoons. So equal parts. So we're going to go a 50-50 ratio on butter and oil. And you just want a really nice coat in your pan, because we're going to saute our vegetables in this as well as allow it to be the base to allow our frittata to not stick to the pan. Because you do not want your frittata to stick or it becomes a huge mess and it's just really not as pretty. I mean, I'm all about pretty food, even if my family isn't. So now I'm going to add the vegetables that we just cut up, so the crunchier vegetables. So we're going to add our green peppers. We'll add our celery. And we'll give those a minute. Those are going to be our crunchiest vegetables, the ones that we want to start with first. And we just want to start breaking them down a little bit. Everything going into your frittata, you want to break it down a little bit so that when you actually pop it into the oven, you're really just cooking the egg until set. And you don't have to worry about the vegetables actually being cooked or getting flavor on them. So we're going to give that a moment. And this is going to seem, like I said, it's going to seem like a lot of oil. And it is. But as it cooks off into the different vegetables and creates the base for your egg, it's really not going to be that much more oily than anything else. All right, so now we're going to add our zucchini. Now, I didn't measure any of this. I mean, like I said, you can add whatever vegetables you have on hand. This is just going to be kind of a garden fresh one. We're not adding any meat to this one in particular, but you definitely could. But you do it to your liking. If you like them loaded, go for it. I just want a really nice variety of flavors and textures, but I want it to stay together. And so, like I said at the beginning, if you put too much in your frittata, is it going to be delicious? Yes, but it's not going to hold together as one solid frittata that's easily sliceable. So we're just going to let that sit for a moment. And then I'll get our broccoli in there. And then, like I said, the broccoli is so incredibly pretty once it starts to just absorb some of that oil and get some heat on it. I mean, it's already gorgeous, but it really brightens up its flavor once it starts to liven up a little bit. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and toss that right in. And give it a stir. Now, see, everything is so green in this. If you had different colored peppers, that would be really pretty. Anything that you can add that'll give some color can make it really fun. But a lot of garden things are green, so that's what's to expect. All right, so let's go ahead. While that's just continuing to cook, let's go cut the other things we're going to put in here. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and we're just going to use a little bit of this green onion. So these green onions are huge. I'm not going to use the whole thing. Maybe I'll just use the tops of 2. And I'll just kind of bend them and just give those a rough chop. Okay, so we have some green onion there. I'm going to take this Swiss chard. I just grabbed 2 large leaves and I'm just going to roll it up. Just give it a little roll and then we'll just kind of slice it on its bias there. It doesn't really matter how you do that. And then 1 chop in the center. Maybe I'll grab a little bit of this kale. Like I said, I pulled it a little while ago, so it's a little bit wilty, but we're going to wilt it down anyways. We'll take that center vein out and we'll set that aside and just kind of, we'll roll that up as well and just give it a little rough chop. There we go. So we have some greens here and we will go ahead and toss those in. And let's see, did we miss anything? I think besides the tomatoes, which we'll add after we put in the egg. I think we're good. So we'll go ahead and add these. All right, so we'll go ahead and add those right to the pan. And we're just going to, again, everything else is already breaking down. We're really just kind of getting a little bit of heat on these greens. Wait until it becomes a little more aromatic. Now, what a lot of people do with eggs is they pre-pepper their eggs. And I have just learned that you really don't want to do that because pepper will make your eggs, your cooked product, look a little gray and dingy, which it's just not as pretty. It's just not as appetizing when you have gray looking eggs. So we're gonna let that go and we'll crack our eggs into this right here. See, can you see that? You can. All right, so I'm gonna use 12 eggs here because we have some new egg layers and their eggs are a little smaller. So you could just, you can use anywhere from 8 to 12 eggs on this, depending on how thick you want your frittata. This one, I'm going to use 12, but again, it's a variety of sizes on the eggs. So you can use your discretion there. It's going to change the cook time a little bit depending on how many you use. But overall, this is a very easy recipe to whip up. And it looks really pretty too. So if you're putting this together for a group of people, it's a really fun one to serve for other people. All right, I'm not counting as I go. I'm assuming I put 12 eggs in this basket. I'm just gonna roll with that. I could count them in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And there we go. We give that a little whisk. All right, as you see, all of this is it's really breaking down really well. And this is the perfect time for us to put in our eggs. So we don't want to incorporate too much air into this or it becomes more of a poofy bake. And I want this to be a little more creamy. I like it to have a little texture to it rather than having kind of that airiness, and some people prefer that. That's totally fine, whatever your preference is. But I'm going to just use that. And we're going to actually just pour it right in the pan. And you kind of want to be gentle. Try not to disperse your vegetables, but you want to cover them all. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab those tomatoes. And I still left all the tops on them. So we're just going to pop them on the top here. Take the tops off. Just arrange them pretty around. The fun thing about putting tomatoes on the frittata is as the heat hits them, they will burst a little bit and they not only become just this fun little like juicy spot on the frittata, but they're just, I don't know, they're just so pretty. I'm not going to need all of these, so we're just going to, we'll call that good. That was like, they're pretty small. These are really small cherry tomatoes. Now our frittata is just about ready to put in the oven. Again, we preheated our oven to 400 degrees. And I'm going to give it just a moment sitting here on the heat to just kind of create that little bit of a crust on the outside. And actually, you know what? Now that I think of it, I really want to add some cheese to this. I'm going to go grab my cheese. We're going to let this cook for just a moment. We're just going to add a little bit of fresh grated Parmesan cheese here. This is just a Parmigiano Reggiano. So fancy. I actually don't often buy that cheese. But we had some from a different zucchini dish that I was baking. Yeah, this is actually a large grater, but that's no big deal. Usually you'd use a small grater with Parmigiano, but no big deal. Get some of that off the edge. And we're just going to give just a little bit of a layering of this. Now, Parmigiano Reggiano is a very salty cheese, so it's up to you if you want to salt your frittata. My husband does not care for too much salt, so I try not to oversalt anything. And like I said, the kids probably won't even touch this, so it doesn't really matter what they like. But this is one of my favorite things to eat throughout the week. So just a little bit of cheese on there. And then we'll wait till afterwards to give it this pepper. But I will give it just a little bit of salt. I'm just going to use a little bit of kosher salt. I prefer kosher salt when it comes to salting a lot of things. It's nice big granules. It doesn't overpower anything with that salt flavor. Just a couple little pinches there. And we'll set the rest of that aside here and call it good. Okay, so this is now ready to put in the oven. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. The cast iron skillets are extremely heavy, so you might need 2 hands. I'm going to one-hand it. We'll see if I can do it. All right, one hand. Here we go with a little mini oven mitt here. All right, going right in the oven. Okay, now we are just going to bake that for about 8 minutes. And I will check it a little bit before that just to make sure that we don't overcook it. So with a frittata and any kind of egg bake, you really don't want to overcook the egg because overcooked eggs are really gross. So your goal here is to look at the center and you want it to just be done. And it might be puffed up just a tiny bit or a little bit more depending on if you actually whipped your eggs more. Again, I'm not looking for a huge puffed egg. That's just not my preference. And so it'll be a little puffed up because that's what eggs do, but not super puffy. And again, we're just looking to just set the center. We don't want to overcook these eggs. Oh, perfect timing. All right, so we got our fully cooked frittata here. And it is just cooked along the edges. And it is puffed up a little in the center, but it's going to go down as it sits. And what we're going to do is we're going to get this out of the pan. If you leave it in, no big deal. It will continue to cook though. So I'm going to see, I think this will work really well. So I'm going to take a plate and I'm going to completely invert this. And we're going to take it out and hope that it doesn't stick. We're going to do it fast. Ready? Gosh, those pans are so incredibly heavy. All right, so it came out completely. We're not going to serve it on this side. I'm going to turn it back over onto another plate. And we'll give it another flip. These plates are kind of small. I could have grabbed a different one, but it's so pretty. Ooh. There's that. Set that aside. I'm going to go ahead and top that with these green onions. Set that aside. All right, so we'll go ahead and just sprinkle these green onions over the top. Oh, it just looks so pretty. There's a little sample on the side there. All right, we have extra green onion. I'm just going to set those right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and move this so that we can slice some sourdough. Set that aside. And this is some sourdough I made the other day. We'll go ahead and just slice it up. Now you can toast this obviously in the toaster, or you can put it on a sheet, like a cookie sheet, and you can toast a bunch all at once if you're making for multiple people. I'm just going to go ahead and take 2 pieces and put them right in my toaster. All right, now let's prep our avocado. Give it a twist. This one's pretty. Avocados are not always that pretty. Sometimes they are just so hit or miss depending on the season too. But these ones are gorgeous. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it some slices within its outer skin. And we will just slice it like this. I'll show you up close. Give it some slices. And then I just actually run my finger in there and pop them out. Like so. Then you have some beautiful slices to put on your toast. Right, that is ready. We can go ahead and slice our frittata while we wait for the toast. So we're going to slice this into like pie slices. So you might want to use a serrated knife. I have avocado on my finger. Oh, that's hot. All right, so we got our sourdough toast here. We'll slice that, put those slices of avocado on it. Oh, we'll give this one 4 slices. That one 3. Oh, it looks so pretty. Just rearrange it on there however you want. Oh, heck. Let's put a little bit of these on there. Why not? And there we have it. Is the frittata with sourdough avocado toast. Super duper easy and really delicious, and I'm dying to try it. So I'm going to taste it for you, just to tell you and make sure that it turned out really good. So you can see the texture there. It looks really good. It looks super hot. Maybe I should blow on it. Oh yeah. That is super good. The Parmesan definitely gives it just that little bit of extra. Do you have to put cheese on it? No, definitely not. But who doesn't like a little bit of cheese on top of their eggs? Yeah, I'm definitely going to go dominate this. So good. Highly recommend making yourself a frittata. Go out to your garden, grab whatever goodies you have in the garden that looks good that day, toss them in some eggs, and you have breakfast ready in 10-15 minutes. Thank you for watching. Now head out to that garden. Maybe I'll take a bite of this too. Oh yeah.